Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Southern Woods and Waters. So great to be here in the studio tonight, and we've got a show that we're really looking forward to bringing you. If you was ever going to go tonight or pick up a tablet and a pencil or something like that before one of our shows, tonight's going to be one of those nights you're going to want to do that. We're going to be sharing a lot of information tonight, and what we're going to be talking all about is going to be not only deer. We're going to be talking about deer, but not necessarily about deer hunting tonight, a little bit about that, but mainly about deer and the way that they communicate and use scents to do that through deer glands and other things. We're going to talk about some of the glands that they have and how they use them, and we have got someone in the studio tonight that is an expert in this area, and we cannot wait to have him talking with us tonight, and that's Dan DeWitt. Dan is here all the way with us from northern Louisiana tonight. Thank you so much for being here, Dan. Of course, Wes Stone down here on the end with us as well. And Wes, you also, you're big into the mock scrapes and the gland scents and things like that, and I just want to say, you know, right up front that this is a totally different a totally different deal than talking about like deer pee in a bottle or some other type of attractant scent. Deer glands, and when I very first met you, Dan, we were at the rendezvous, at Wes's rendezvous, and we get to talking that day, and you and I were talking just a little bit about deer and scents and this, that, and the other, and you said the magic word. And the magic word to me was glands. You said, man, I use gland scents, and that's what I do. And so that's what we're going to talk about, is how they use these gland scents and different glands on their body to communicate. And it's like a signpost type deal. And you mentioned earlier, and I love the way that you said it, Dan, it was kind of like social media has been in the deer world for a long time. And what they do is they use scrapes, they use licking branches, they use different things like that, even rubs. When they're rubbing trees, they're not just marking trees. I mean, they're putting a gland against that tree, and it's kind of like making a post, like we said earlier, Wes. It's like they're making a post on their page almost. Hey, I'm here. I'm in this section of woods, and you'll see that year round. It's all the time. It's not just during November or during the rut. But a lot of people think that because, number one, well, several reasons. One is they spend more time in the woods during that time of year, so they see more then. Number two, you do see more because it is the rut. Therefore, bucks are more active. The more active they are, the more they're going to be working these areas. But this is used year-round. This is something, Dan, that this is all year round. And but just a little bit about you first. I just want to, you know, I've introduced you by name, but tell everybody just a little bit about your background in this. How did you get into this, and what is it that made you, same way as me, you know, with that gland, you knew that there was such a difference. But just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I spent my life as an outfitter and guide. That's how I made my living, over 40 years. And, you know, I've chased all the critters, the elk, the mule deer, and of course the whitetail and the turkey. But I'm not a chemist, I'm not a biologist like you are. And when we met and we had that magical conversation of the word gland, that's what got, you know, me and you really in our conversation. But just being a student of white-tailed deer all of my life, watching what deer do and how they react, I figured out a long time ago, deer don't communicate with urine. They communicate with the glands, and you know a lot more about that. But when you really go out there and you look at what deer do and how they do it, the licking branch, the scrape, that's what it's all about. That's how deer, you know, either the interdigital gland or all the glands in the head or the dorsal gland, that's where deer actually communicate.
That's right.
And like you said, they created social media, we didn't.
Yeah, they have their own, each deer has his own mark. It's almost like a thumbprint signature. And they can differentiate. You have to think of their smell system, their senses compared to ours. They can differentiate one deer to another. And these glands, there's eight glands total. We're not going to talk about them. Some are more important than others, but they actually have 8 glands on their body that they will use different ways throughout the year to you know, pass on scent or kind of make their mark. But the main ones we're going to be talking about tonight, and the ones that you see the most, salivary gland, which is obvious where that is. When you see deer chewing, you know, they're nipping up in a licking branch. They're not literally so much licking as they are almost nipping, and that's where your salivary gland comes into play. Your preorbital gland, which the preorbital gland is, it would have been great. I should have grabbed this mount behind y'all, got it down here tonight. But their preorbital gland is in the corner of their eye. Kind of is the best way to describe that. Then they have a forehead gland that's in almost dead center of the top of their forehead. Now those are the three that when you see them working a scrape or a licking branch or something like that, that's the three that are being used the most. Now, will they pee in that scrape? Yes, and then we'll get to what we call a squat or something like that, or a rubbing urination or something like that. They do that. That's right, and they'll use that in the scrape. But one of the key things that I know you'll get to, and I'm just trying to kind of set this up for us tonight. But these glands, they do not produce anything. It's not.
That's right.
It's not putting out a something that they're rubbing on the tree or this, that, and other. It's actually bacteria. What it is, it's just a gland that bacteria forms in naturally, and therefore creates a unique odor, and that's what it comes from. So they don't create a cream or something out of it that you're going to see on the outside of the deer. The urination part is obviously what we've always historically been most familiar with, and what we thought was going on, but it actually turns out it's the glands, it's the tarsal glands and the metatarsal glands that's on those deer legs that they're using. It's not actually the urination. But anyhow, also if you are having a deer tracked, let's say a tracking dog is following a deer, they are following that deer through what?
The interdigital.
It's called the interdigital gland. And where's that located at? Just
right
tell
there
us
in
a
their
little
hoof.
bit about that. And it's the same way. Every time a deer puts its foot down, every single time it puts its foot down, it's leaving that smell.
Now, you being a biologist can answer this question better than I can. Is it true that if a wounded deer, or when a deer becomes wounded, they're actually putting more of that scent down, and that's how the dog can differentiate? Is that true?
I'm
not true?
not 100%. I can't answer that in with any kind of certainty at all. I don't know
because there's a lot of controversy in that, and that's why I wanted to ask you.
I know
about
a dog can differentiate that deer from another deer, and that's why I know another reason that it's like it's thumbprint. That dog knows if you put him on that deer that you shot, he'll run through 100 more tracks and stay on that track. So there is something to it, but whether it's stronger on a track, I don't know. Sure. Yeah, sure.
Have you ever heard of everybody always killing a deer over here and cutting the tarsal gland and putting it in the bag and taking it somewhere else to hunt?
Sure. I mean,
does that work?
I think, yeah, it'll work. I mean, anything, you can go pee in a scrape and it'll work. I mean, let's just get real.
Right.
All in all, I think it's a low percentage, but I'd take any percentage when it comes to shooting a material deer. I'd take luck.
Right.
I take luck over every gland.
Same way fishing.
I was talking to a buddy of mine today, and he got ruined at 17 years of age because his first deer, 20 minutes into his first deer hunt, he shoots a 171-inch booner.
That'll ruin it.
I mean, now he's a bass fisherman because there's just nothing that he gets excited about.
Right.
But I'll take that percentage too. Sure. Put me on
anything you can do.
That's
anything you can do.
I think the reason that most people, through observation once again, and me doing it a long time, I've tried it all. I mean, I think the reason I've been successful is because I failed more. But through failure, I said, okay, that don't work. Let's figure out something that does work. And I think that's what people need to do, is learn to just go out there and try things, especially with glands and scents, and go forward with that.
Learn to adjust. Cameras have made it where you can watch a lot more what's going on with these cameras now, see what's working and what's not. So that's made a big difference.
But there's another buck intruding. There's a lot of truth to that, but I'm not going to bet the farm on it.
Okay, I got another quick question, and this is serious. Before cameras come out, just like depth finders for fish, you had to physically get that information. You could not pull it off of a camera.
That's right.
Just like you cannot go find it on a live scope.
That's right.
The knowledge you learn off that camera or a live scope is not really physically helping you to know what that deer's doing. It's just giving you a time.
That's an argument we can have later too, because there are cameras out there now that do real-time data. But the thing is, before cell cams and trail cams,
which hasn't been that long.
You've done this a lot longer. We're discussing that at dinner tonight. People, even biologists 20 years, 30 years ago, had a different concept about a mock scrape or a scrape as they do now because of the actual data that we get from cameras. Cameras don't lie. Fishermen do.
No, never. Never.
But seriously, the camera has changed a lot of technology and a lot of the way that we hunt. But at the same time, observation through 40-something years of actually watching deer do it, getting to hunt in areas where there are a lot of deer, you do get a lot of
Teaches you a lot
education.
more.
But I've done everything from put sewing thread across trails. If y'all remember the original trail get you, was that little gadget that
trail
come out
keeper.
that had the little
That's what they
clock
call
on
it.
it and the deer walked down. You didn't know if it was a deer or whatever, but you knew exactly what time whatever busted that trail.
Could have been Farmer Brown. It
Dude,
don't matter.
if there's been a gadget out there, I've owned at least 2 of them. You know,
That's
what I mean?
right.
There again, you got to learn by just
Trial and error.
Trial and error, and I think that's the best teacher in a lot of cases.
Well, guys, we're going to go right now and do this week's wild game forecast. This week's wild game forecast is being sponsored by our friends over at Wilson Bank and Trust. You guys can stop and see them at one of over 30 Middle Tennessee locations. They've been taking care of all your banking and financial needs now for over 30 years. Stop into one of their branches and be sure to tell them thank you for all they do for us here at the show. All right, guys. Well, forecast has been pretty nice. It looks like, the weekend's going to be warm, but a little bit, a little cooler than it has been. But the thing I want to hit on with the forecast in general, with bow season coming up, we got some tournaments coming up, a lot of things going on. These cool mornings, Wes. What about these mornings, man?
The deer been moving good the last few mornings.
Those cell cameras have
Yeah, they've
been
been
lighting up.
Bing, 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 bing.
I mean, bing, bing, bing. You get up in the morning, it's like being a kid at Christmas every
It
morning,
is.
going on there and checking.
Yeah, it's like hunting 24/7.
You know, now I got another quick question. All deer, and people might not know this, but a month and a half ago, all your does were red or brighter color. Now you'll go in a group, there'll be 2 brown ones, and they'll still be light colored.
Yep.
Summer coat, they're changing into winter coat.
Saving it.
They know it's coming.
That's it. They're getting ready.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, they're getting
The
ready to go.
bucks, watch the bucks. You're going to see a more tone change in those too.
Right.
The velvet, we were talking about earlier, the velvet starting in a lot of areas. Deer have already shed all their velvet. Some areas they still carrying velvet, but they're fixing to, cut that velvet.
It's all different.
I love looking for velvet rubs, but that's another conversation.
Well, guys, we want to remind y'all to follow us on Facebook. Keep up with us there. We've always got something going on there you want to be involved with. We'll be right back here in just a minute with this week's Pictures of the Week and some more Southern Woods and Waters.